Hello, everybody. Oh my goodness. I remember that clip that I was editing. Yeah, so it didn't save when I exported it. But I'm not speaking of the divorce clip. I got that one done. But I'm talking about the one that was going to be the opener that I was so excited about. Nope. Every day is a mystery. Oh, so happy to have you. Hi. Yeah. Oh golly, and I was so excited about that one too. I mean, I can do it, but it would. Oh nope, I can't. It's on the other computer. Oh, nope. We are going to finish off the clip from earlier, and then I'm going to stream the finale, and then I am going to get ready to not have any fun. Hello, I'm so happy to have you back. Yes, you tell Robert I said hello as well. Tell him I'm happy to have him and that I love him bunches and bunches too. Hello, welcome back. Oh, you guys are just the best. All right, so let me, I'm going to put the previous one back on. I'm going to have to skip ahead in it. And I don't remember the exact point, so I'm going to go to his testimony.
One moment, please. The 37th Circuit Court is back in session with the Honorable...
Come on.
Trying to get fired. I actually... Yes.
At one point you had worked back in 2007 doing some child care.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, I did daycare with a friend in her home.
Rosler, the previous job.
Okay, we're going to repeat a little of it.
Any retirement account there, when I left that job, that was cashed out, and I used that to pay for expenses on the house and cars.
Thank you. I don't think I have anything further. Ms. Kirkpatrick, any redirect?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, that doesn't leave anything for you, Mr. Umloff.
No, it doesn't, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Kirkpatrick, next witness.
So we're going to start just with his.
Okay. Mr. Umloff, do you have any rebuttal?
Could I meet with my client in a breakout room briefly?
Sure. We'll put you in a breakout room and we'll basically put you back in a waiting room, Ms. Kirkpatrick. And how long do you think you'll need, Mr. Umloff?
5 minutes.
Okay, we'll give you 5 minutes and then bring you back.
Okay, give me
Thank
just
you.
a moment.
Mr. Umloff?
There was some testimony by Amber regarding another retirement account. Do you have another retirement account other than the one we disclosed? No. Okay. What do you think she is referring to? Rosler, the previous job, that any retirement account there, when I left that job, that was cashed out, and I used that to pay for expenses on the house and cars, etc. So when did you leave that? Sorry. That was over 10 years ago. I was at my last job 10 years. Gotta think of the date, not on the top of my head. Sorry. Okay. Do you believe that COVID-19 is a hoax? COVID-19 is real, and it killed a lot of people. So you do not believe it's a hoax? It is not a hoax.
It sure
Were you ever
did.
opposed to vaccinations for your children? I'm not opposed to my children getting vaccinated, or my wife. People have their choice to get vaccinated. There was testimony regarding a disagreement over whether to take one of your children to
the doctor after he was cut on his finger. Do you recall that instance?
Yes, I do.
When did this occur?
I don't have an exact date. It would have been several years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago.
Could you tell us what happened?
I think he cut his finger on a broken glass that had fallen, and so it cut his skin. So I had to make sure that there's no glass in it, cleaned it out, put the ointment on it and bandaged it up correctly so that the skin would be together so that it would heal correctly without a scar.
And did you do that?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did it appear from your observation?
And I would just like to say this in his defense. As a mom, I know firsthand that when your baby gets cut, moms, and sometimes dads, but moms do have a tendency of overreacting, especially, if it's their baby and there's blood. So I'm not saying definitively that's what happened, but I can remember when, a couple of times where I would take my daughter to the ER for something that I thought was serious, like so serious. And they would kind of look at me like, that's it, really? So in his defense, that happens.
That he needed to go to the hospital?
It did not appear to my observations that he needed to go to the hospital.
And to be clear, you don't have medical training, is that right?
I do not have medical training.
But you've dealt both yourself growing up and having other children. You've dealt with cuts, bruises, and scrapes before. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And which child was it again?
It was Logan.
Okay. Did Logan suffer long-term harm because he did not go to the hospital that day?
No, he did not.
Are there any guns in your home?
There are no guns in my home.
Okay. Were there guns in your home previously?
Yes.
When did you take them out?
It would have been in May
Of this year?
of this year.
Why is that?
I didn't want anyone breaking in and getting their hands on them.
When the guns were in your home, what did you do to make sure your children were safe from playing with them or something like that?
The ammo is kept separately in a room. The bolts are taken out of so the gun parts are taken apart, and they have locks that go in the trigger area.
And those locks prevent the trigger from being pulled?
That is correct.
And where was the key?
It's in my pocket.
Okay. So the children could not have gotten access to those, at least not to use them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
As it relates to the Ford Mustang Cobra, were you still making payments on it after you got married?
I believe I finished making payments on June of 2003.
So there was a short window of time after your marriage that you were still making payments on it.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And how many payments were those? Or how much was each monthly payment? I'm sorry.
$500 a month. That'd be December, January, February, March, April, May, June. 7 months.
Okay. And do you believe that your wife's health problems prevent her from working full time?
I do not believe her health problems keep her from working.
Is her testimony that you used to brag to your family and friends about how well the kids were doing in homeschooling accurate?
Yes, I support my kids and I encourage them to feel good about homeschooling, to try to encourage it.
Did there come a point where you changed your mind about homeschooling?
When she left the home, my kids' education became a concern to me.
Had you been having doubts before then about homeschooling?
No.
Is it accurate that the children missed part of the judging on the 4-H fair in the incident that both you and your wife described in your testimonies?
If it was, I was unaware of it. She told me what times they needed to be there for what they needed to do. So I made sure they were there for that. If I was not communicated that information, then I wouldn't have known.
Is it accurate that you started recording your interactions with her?
Yes, I started recording and I made sure she knew I was recording.
And why did you do that?
Just in case there's any hearsay or just for some security, maybe.
Did you ever order your wife to order things using her credit card?
If I needed a pair of slippers ordered or a pillow, she'd order it for me.
But did you order her to do it, or did you ask?
I asked. Sorry, order. I'm thinking ordering something like
I understand.
something. Sorry, no, I don't order her to do it. If she doesn't want she didn't want to do it, I would do it myself. I just ask her out of kindness.
Did you ever threaten to kill yourself?
No, I have not.
Did you yell at your children during that period of time leading up to losing your job?
No, I did not.
Did you yell at your wife during that period of time?
No, I did not.
And after you lost your job and you were now staying at home, did you yell at your children or your wife?
No, I did not yell at my children, and I did not yell at my wife.
Did you tell your wife you were trying to get fired?
No, I did not. I was not trying to get fired. I actually loved my job.
Was there a point in time where your wife was expecting the children to be returned to her on a Friday morning and they came back on a Sunday evening?
I believe she's referring to the time when the school schedule changed. Because when the school schedule starts, it changes the times I see them. And since the school schedule moved out a couple weeks, that meant I got them the whole week instead of taking them back when school started. I think that's where the confusion is. It was a very confusing time, but we worked together to make sure the kids got to where they needed to be. And so I felt I was following the parenting time schedule at that point, because it turned into a summer schedule at that point when the school starting date moved.
Other than the instance involving Logan cutting his finger, have you ever had a disagreement with your wife regarding medical care for the children?
No, I have not.
Now, it's clear to the court you disagree on whether the children should be homeschooled or not. Is that fair?
I would like my children to go to public schools. Public schools have a lot to offer. They got counselors, they got extracurricular programs, they cover a full course of subjects and different subjects that they can choose from. They'll also be around a lot of kids their own age that they can interact with, meet new friends, and learn how to interact with people more so from a social aspect.
But you haven't unilaterally enrolled them in Battle Creek Public Schools, have you?
I have not.
Okay.
I would like to.
Okay. But you've chosen not to unilaterally do that because we have this court case where we're asking the judge to make an order. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Was her testimony regarding the condition of the various pets when she came back to your house in late April or early May with the police accurate?
That was not accurate. The pets were fed and watered daily. I took care of them. I would pet the birds, pet the chinchilla.
And you cleaned their habitats as well?
I would clean their cages also.
Were any of the young chickens killed?
Not to my knowledge. There are mink here.
Okay.
Just letting you know, they eat chickens, but no, I was unaware of any of them disappeared.
Did you ever tell her regarding things like soccer and 4-H, meaning your wife, that because she signed them up, it's her problem, she had to figure out how to get them there?
No, I have not. I've actually taken them to many activities and soccer and such. It was a busy time.
After this, I'm going to go on red carpet story time and tell you what happened to that pizza. It wasn't pretty.
You were accused of having an extramarital affair during the testimony. Did you ever have an extramarital affair?
16 years ago. It was short. I regretted it. Her and I worked it out, as she mentioned, and I've been faithful ever since.
Is there any truth to the defendant's testimony regarding you cashing paychecks and putting large amounts of cash in that safe?
No, I did not put any large amounts of cash in a safe.
Did you at any time keep cash in a safe during the marriage?
There was some for a while there, but it all got spent and the money just kept going into the bank instead. I don't have any money in a safe.
So this would have been many years ago?
This was many years ago.
Was it ever as much as $100,000?
No.
Do you have an estimate of the most you ever kept in a safe at any point in time during the marriage?
There was maybe 15,000 in there. And I know I used 10 of it to go towards the Yukon.
Nothing further.
Okay. Ms. Kirkpatrick, any cross?
Yes. So, Mr. Hardig, did you get a chance to look at Defendant's Exhibit 7, which were some text messages between you and Amber?
Oh, let me see if I can find them. Give me a minute.
Ms. Kirkpatrick, I'll just ask, does this go to any of the questioning by Mr. Umlauf?
Yep, it's about how much he loves his job.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm not sure. I have my Exhibit 7 is a credit card bill. I don't know what you're referring to.
If I could clarify, I think he's referring to my Exhibit 7 that I submitted to the court. Nancy, do you have the ability to use share screen?
Oh my God, no. Excuse me. I'm just referring to one statement that he made. Let me try to read it to him. So, Mr. Pardig, on or about February 23rd, 2023, did say to your wife over text message, "Hi, work sucks as usual, going one day at a time, maybe hour to hour. The doldrum of depression is me. Good to hear from you."
That almost sounds poetic.
Okay. Did you say that to your wife?
It sounds like something I might write. I like to write poetic stuff. Some of it's.
Did you see the judge's face when he said that almost sounds poetic? The judge actually busted out laughing right there. And yeah, that sounds like something if you're having a crummy day at work, and you want to put a smile on your partner's face, you write stuff like that. I understand his goofy personality. I rather like this guy. Yeah. that made me laugh. In no way would I ever take that seriously. And I think the judge recognized that.
Dull. Some of it's exciting.
Okay. It didn't sound to me like you were loving your job at the end of February of this year.
Well, in February, the skies are gray for several months, and it's an emotion. Sometimes I express myself and let my thoughts come out. It's like a Pisces. That's just thinking, being poetic. She knows I'm poetic.
Okay, so did you love your job, or does work suck as usual, going hour to hour?
Yes, I love my job.
Okay. Okay, so
is that attorney, Captain Lipsmack. She's a brat too.
at one point you had 15,000 in cash in a safe, and 10 you used to buy the Yukon. Is that what your testimony just was?
Yes.
Okay. This morning you said you never had any money in the account, in the safe.
I do not have any money in the safe.
So you used to have money and you don't now. Is that what you're saying?
That was a long time ago.
Okay. So if you are not opposed to the children being inoculated, why aren't they?
They don't.
And flu shots and chicken pox and other things.
They did not want the COVID vaccine.
Okay, so you're saying you were good with it? It was the boys that didn't want it?
If they wanted the COVID vaccine, they could have gotten it.
Okay.
COVID was real.
All right. So the last my client knew, there were guns in your bedroom closet. Is that the case? When she left, there were guns in the bedroom closet, right?
I removed guns from the house in May.
Okay. She hasn't been in your bedroom since April. Is that correct?
That's not correct.
Okay. When was she in your bedroom? After April?
On June 6th, she stopped by to get some of her clothes.
Okay. She went into your bedroom?
There with my mother.
Okay. What did she get?
She got some of her belongings, clothes, shoes. What'd Amber get? Ask her.
I'm asking you. Were you there?
I was there.
Why did you move the guns out of the bedroom?
I didn't want anyone to break in and steal them, get a hold of them with what was going on.
So Amber, basically, you didn't want her to break into her own house and steal your guns. Is that what you're saying?
I think you're drawing conclusions here.
Okay, well, I'm asking you, who were you afraid was going to break into your house?
I never said I was afraid. I said I didn't want them here during what's going on.
Translation, my soon-to-be ex-wife has proven herself unstable, and I don't trust her anymore. I don't trust her with my life, and I'm certainly not going to have firearms around her. I understood it clearly.
I didn't know if she would show up in the middle of the night or what. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so when you took them out of the house, where did they go?
They're in a safe place.
Okay, where is that?
That's confidential.
All right, thank you.
Nothing else, Mr. Kirkpatrick?
Nope, nothing else.
Anything else, Mr. Elmoff?
Just a couple of questions. You testified earlier, Mr. Pardeep, that you love your job. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Is it your testimony that you've never had a bad day at work?
Some days at work are bad.
Is it likely that if you sent a text like the one that was just read aloud to you by Ms. Kirkpatrick, that you may have sent that to your wife on a particularly bad day at work or a boring day?
Yeah, that's possible. Absolutely.
Nothing further.
Anything else, Ms. Kirkpatrick, as a result of that?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any other rebuttal, Mr. Elmoff?
None, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Kirkpatrick, any rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think at this point, why don't we do this is why don't we adjourn for the day, as I do have to get staff out. And what we'll do is we'll start on Tuesday, 8:30 on 11/14, 2023. And then at that time, we'll start out with closing arguments, and then I'll go into court's finding at that time. Okay, anything else, Mr. Elmoff, before we conclude?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Kirkpatrick?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you all. We'll excuse you.
All right, so that was the end of the first hearing with these two. And I had to wait a whole week to get the conclusion, so I got the conclusion, and then I've been kind of slowly editing it and trying to get as many of the lip smacks out over, this past week, and then also having to bring new content every night. So that's why it took me a little longer. I guess another streamer already ran this, but you know what? It's better here because it's with us, all of us. And now we go to the conclusion. And I'm going to warn you, I did the whole conclusion in the last, hour and a half-ish that I was off. So I didn't get as many of those lip smacks out. So at least I don't think we'll have to deal with as many sniffles as I had to take out of the last one. But yeah, let's roll with this. Hi, Mama Jamma. Oh, I'm so sorry you've missed so much, but I'm happy you're here now, sweetie. I just have to find where I put this. Here we go.
Unmute everybody. We are ready to begin. Okay, one moment. The 37th Circuit Court is now in session with the Honorable Brian K. Kirkham presiding. It is Tuesday, November 14th, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. for 2023-1126 DM Jerry Pardig versus Amber Pardig. Attorney Paul Umlauf for plaintiff and Nancy Kirkpatrick for defendant.
Good morning to everyone. When we concluded last week on November 7th, we had not, we completed all the proofs. We had not yet completed closing arguments, which we continued to today's date, as well as the ruling. So, Mr. Umloff, you can proceed with your closing.
Certainly, Your Honor. I'll start by noting that as it relates to the party's children or going over the best interest factors, I think the testimony has established that Jerry does have a loving, affectionate, and bond with his children and strong emotional ties with them. Testimony established that they do come to him with their triumphs, their problems, and when they're in need of guidance. He's shown in his testimony that he has the capacity and disposition to provide his children with love, affection, guidance, and continue educating and raising them in their particular religion. He's also shown capacity and disposition to provide them with the necessities of life, be it food, clothing, medical care, and other types of remedial care permitted under the laws of the state of Michigan. The children lived up until April in a very stable and satisfactory environment in the marital home for a number of years, where my client continues to reside, and for reasons we'll get into later, I think should continue to reside there. They have a strong family unit there and a strong bond with his side of the family. He's proven himself to be morally fit and healthy. As it relates to the issue of school, Jerry's testimony provided, and I think the defendant's testimony also showed that the children really would be better off enrolling in their Battle Creek public schools because there's more options there for them, more extracurriculars, a larger selection of classes, more things that they can learn about rather than continuing in the homeschooling environment. I think it is in their best interests. The court the court has already done an interview with the children, and I know the court will take their reasonable preference into consideration. The factor that really jumped out at me in this case was the willingness and ability of each parent to facilitate and encourage a close and continuing parent-child relationship between the children and the other parent. For a 9-week period of time, the defendant did not allow Jerry to see his children, even though he asked and tried. It took a court order for him to see them again. And what was interesting with regard to the testimony was the defendant indicated that she did not believe Wednesday was an appropriate day to be doing Jerry's midweek visit. And when I asked, is there another day of the week that would work? She simply said no.
And that right there was so telling. To her, he's just an inconvenience in their lives. She just wants him to go away. She doesn't want the children's father as a part of their lives. And that is so sad. Parent your children and don't use them as pawns against the person you chose to create them with. It's such a tired game.
Which shows me that she is not yet willing to facilitate a close bond between Jerry and the children. For all these reasons, what we are asking the court to do is order equal parenting time with alternating holidays, half of the school summer break, half of the school winter break, and alternating spring breaks. Recalculate child support in accordance with that schedule, and also with the testimony regarding both the health insurance payments made by my client and also any changes in income since the last temporary order was entered. And of course, we would ask to continue the joint legal custody and in fact make it joint physical as well. As it relates to issues of property, the party's marital home would require a buyout of approximately $95,000. The defendant claims that she can simply get the money from her mother, even though not only is she claiming that she needs spousal support and claiming that she needs my client to pay for her attorney fees, she also could not even do a second round of mediation simply because she couldn't afford it. She couldn't articulate a plan for how she was going to pay her mother back. Not clear, frankly, if this was going to be a gift or a loan, but either way, my client has sufficient income to buy her out and has taken these steps, not with his parents or with his friends, but with an appropriate financial institution to look into whether or not or to start the process of buying her out of the marital home. It's clear he's better able to do so, and for that reason should stay in the marital home. and be awarded that in this particular divorce, we further acknowledge that he would have to buy her out, and he is ready and willing to do so. As it relates to the vehicles, testimony established that the 2004 Chrysler Town and Country, 2006 GM Yukon, and the 1999 Ford Mustang Cobra should indeed go to him. In particular, the 1999 Ford Mustang Cobra is premarital. Should Your Honor be inclined to rule that part of that Ford Mustang Cobra is indeed not premarital, because they did make some payments on towards the loan on that vehicle during the marriage, I would ask Your Honor to consider that a minimal amount in accordance with Jerry's testimony. Further, my client requests both the boat with the trailer and motor and what was referred to as the John boat. With regard to the vehicles, of course, my client acknowledges that the 05 Honda Civic and the 2003 Pontiac Aztek should go to the defendant. The main checking account that the parties used has already been split up because the defendant, in essence, drained about half of the money from it early on in this divorce process. We would ask that that be taken into consideration when dividing up the parties' bank accounts. With regards to personal property, we have reached a settlement on everything except for the queen size bed. I don't recall any testimony from the plaintiff's or from the defendant's side regarding the queen size bed, where my client did testify that he does need that bed. He is at an age where finding comfortable furniture and beds is not as easy as it once was for him, and that and he needs that queen size bed to be able to sleep. As it relates to the parties' debts, I would note that the testimony showed that my client did pay off balances on both his and his wife's Fifth Third credit cards and the Cabela's credit card, and we would ask that that be taken into account. There is a personal loan from Advia that my client has testified should not be considered a marital debt, as he was not aware of it at the time, in contrast with the bank account that Amber opened with Quentin, which he believes should be factored in because it was opened during the marriage and because he was aware of it at the time. As it relates to the issues of spousal support, both parties did work during the marriage, although there is no dispute that my client had the higher income. However, my belief, if Your Honor is inclined to award the marital home to my client, that the defendant will see a substantial windfall of $95,000 out of this divorce, which should be more than enough for her to start a new life with her children, more than enough for her to start a new life. And her own testimony establishes that she is voluntarily underemployed. She even continues to babysit for free for a friend that occasionally helps out with car repairs for her. And I think for that reason, the court can consider her voluntarily underemployed and take that into account when looking at whether to award any spousal support or not. My client has testified that he is also looking at substantial bills, and for that reason is unable to pay any spousal support. He is not cohabitating with anyone. There's no one sharing his bills. He's going to have to foot that all on his own. He currently works a job where he is making $100,000 a year. However, he just started that job, and this is the highest he's ever made. We would ask if the court is going to award spousal support, consider his previous incomes, which were substantially lower. But in essence, we are requesting that there be an award of no spousal support. As it relates to the issue of attorney fees, my client has not violated any court orders in this case. There is no testimony that he did. He, for the same reasons he is unable to pay spousal support, has shown that he is not able to pay for Amber's attorney fees as well. I would note that Amber currently acknowledges that she has approximately $13,000 in the bank that she has not touched throughout this process. And I would ask the court take note of that. And further, would note that the defendant has gone through, I believe the testimony was 4 separate attorneys over the past year. She is certainly capable of paying her own attorney fees. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kirkpatrick, any closing?
Yes, Your Honor. The most important issue to my client in regards to this divorce is the custody, parenting time, and child support issues involving their 3 teenage sons, Samuel, Logan, and Elijah. As the court has heard through the testimony, there is also a child who was recently a minor, Quentin, who's 20 years old, and now is kind of adrift in this situation as well. My client is asking the court to either continue the court's current order as far as the custody and parenting time, which basically is the standard Calhoun County parenting time as far as that's concerned, or consider lifting the joint legal custody aspect of this between her and Jerry, which was put into place as a temporary order. Some of the reasons that she's concerned about are that both her and Jerry seem to have a lot of problem communicating effectively with each other. They do not seem to agree on issues concerning the children. In 2018, when they both saw that the children were struggling in Battle Creek public schools, they did at that point in time agree to remove them and have them to be homeschooled. And as Jerry's testimony was last week at our hearing, he didn't have an issue with that up until the point where he filed for divorce and now has made a determination that it is not okay for the children to be homeschooled. My client is concerned that not having agreement on issues of medical, vaccination, doctors' visits for the children, how they should be educated, where they should be educated, are going to be a problem going forward for her in attempting to advocate for these children. The issue regarding my client's housing during this point in time, she has indicated that she has been temporarily living in the home of a friend in the basement with the children, that all the children have their own beds, but it is crowded and something that can't continue forever. She cannot go through forever not paying for herself as far as her housing and housing for her and the children. And so when dad indicates, look, I have the capacity to feed and clothe and properly care for these children, but provide medical insurance for these children. Well, that's that issue up until the end of August 2023. They spent several months on Medicaid, applied for by my client and herself as well, living in this basement that Mr. Pardik has testified was not good. And, he didn't seem to have a problem with that, living in the marital home and them living somewhere else. Now, I think that the court definitely could tell from the testimony from my client that she has a close and loving relationship with these children, in addition to the older children. When she testified, they were of primary indication that she is a package deal presented to the court, her and the children. She has homeschooled these children. She has spent every day with these children. She has made the determination that it would be in their best interest to be involved in different social activities with other children, as she's testified to, being able to give them more of an outreach into the community, that she's been the one who has encouraged them to be in extracurricular activities and 4-H and these kind of things, hiking and art that they continue to enjoy. This is all on Amber. This was not something that Jerry was involved in, and he was okay with that as long as they were living together. And now it appears it's a problem because I imagine, doesn't know what he would do as far as homeschooling these children and would have to place them then in school. So I believe that my client has kept the needs of these children, as she sees it, paramount with her own at this point, and that she prevents close emotional ties between herself and the children. As far as raising the children in the religion, it doesn't appear that there is a dispute about that. They've all attended the same denomination. However, my client did testify that dad did not go with the family except minimally for 7 years prior to the divorce being filed. And she was the one that took the children on a regular basis to church. And again, that she was the one that handled the school. She was the one that took care of the children when they were sick. She was the one that handled the extracurricular activities. I think that my client has shown to the court that she does have the capacity, disposition to provide the children with food, clothing, and medical care. When there was no medical care, she applied for it and obtained it for the children. She has had minimal job experience over the past 20 years of the marriage, but she has found additional work at this time in order to supplement the child support that she's just recently been able to collect on behalf of the children. That the needs of the children are primary in her mind. She spends her money taking care of the children. She has looked for work that would enable her to take care of the children and have time in order to do the homeschooling and for their direct care. And that has been consistently during the marriage, according to her testimony. Now, the length of time the children have lived in a stable, satisfactory environment, desirability of continuing it. We believe that the stable, satisfactory environment is with my client. It may not be in the basement of the house where she's living, but she is looking to improve her situation, hopefully by moving back into the marital home with the children where they would be most comfortable. She is not living with anyone. She doesn't have a person who would be living in the house with her at this point in time. I believe that she is morally capable of taking care of the children. There aren't any indications that she is not, that her mental and physical health is good. She has provided a lot of testimony as far as how she does the homeschooling for the children, when they do it, the ways that she supplements it, the type of materials that she uses, and what types of responsibilities and things that she offers to the children as a result of it. I am also struck by the willingness and ability of the parties to facilitate and encourage a close and continuing parent-child relationship between the child and the other parent. Now, it is true that at the beginning of this divorce process, that my client did go to a domestic violence shelter with the children and stayed there prior to moving into her previous, to the place where she's living at this point. However, it has certainly not been without issues between the parents with the children going back and forth. Mr. Pardik appears to be unable to be flexible as far as the needs of the children with his parenting time. We heard about, how he could have enabled the children to have to not have to leave a camping trip that they had with other homeschool students in order to come for a 4-hour parenting time, but he would not agree. And all the trouble my client went to this year for the fair, with the boys being able to show and present their 4-H projects at the fair, with the father just not taking any consideration to the needs and the desires of the children in order to do that, rather looking at what he felt was best for himself, rather that time. Mr. Umloff points out the fact that my client testified that during the week, she doesn't like the fact that there's a 4-hour block of time for the children. Well, she's entitled to her opinion, and the court is going to make a determination about whether that's in her best interest. But, Your Honor, Mr. Pardik has received all of his parenting time. If my client didn't like it, she showed up at the meeting point and the children went during that time. She has never failed to honor the court's order as far as the parenting time that Mr. Pardik was able to receive. The domestic violence aspect of this, the court has heard testimony where my client went, the fact that she took the children when she went, that she was concerned that Mr. Pardik was going to be angry that she was leaving him, and felt that it was in her and the children's best interest at that point in time. You know, Mr. Pardik has the opportunity to show these children that he loves them by doing things for him, doing things for them, like the 4-H situation. He knows that his 20-year-old son, Quentin, has no health insurance. He got a new job and put the health insurance on the children that were minors and not Quentin.
Which is absolutely, completely acceptable. What is wrong with not putting an adult on your medical insurance? They are also perfectly capable of working and getting their own medical insurance. And if they can't afford their own medical insurance, then they can go through the state. But there is absolutely nothing wrong with continuing to support an adult child. That makes me so mad that they're trying to use that. They're trying to villainize him for that.
Just no reason. Just didn't do that. Didn't put it on my client either when that happened. He just does not fully consider the needs of these children like my client does. And therefore, I believe that she is the appropriate physical custodian of the children. Now, that being said, it is true that she does not have the work history or the education that Mr. Pardik does. We heard testimony about this. And in fact, when the child support was figured back in June of 2023, and most recently, an imputed amount was used for Ms. Pardik, which was 40 hours a week times $15 an hour times 52 weeks out of the year. So $31,200. My client could earn $31,200. And I think that's an appropriate amount to impute to my client if we're talking about the child support and about spousal support issues. She now, as she testified, has found another part-time job that pays her $15 an hour for 24 hours of work, and she's going to continue to clean the church. And she does this so that she can be with these children and she can homeschool them and provide them with the kind of supervision that they need at this point. In that she does not have the kind of work history and salary history that Mr. Pardik has, it would be hard for her to qualify for a mortgage to buy a home at this point. And even, to put it out there as far as renting an apartment, which makes her being able to take over this home and pay Mr. Party $95,000 in cash, which she's going to borrow from her mother, the optimal situation. She would have an appropriate place in order to have the children. She's testified that she would reunite the entire family, all 5 of the children, living with her in this home. Mr. Party would be paid off for the complete amount of the equity in this home.
The fact that she would reunite all 5 children, the adult children and the children, that upsets me because, okay, yeah, there's nothing wrong with giving your kids a hand up to help them out, even after they're adults. And yeah, some insurance companies do allow you to keep them on until they're 26 if they're continuing their education, but I really get the sense from everything that has been discussed within this whole ordeal that it's not a continuing education situation. It is she is coddling the adult children, and she's not making them grow up. She's not making them progress. It's almost as if she wants to keep them disadvantaged. And that upsets me. And I really hope she does not get the home. I don't know the outcome. When I edited this, I didn't do my normal. Usually when I edit, I watch it the entire way through to make sure that I get all the addresses and phone numbers and mouth smacks that I can get. I did not watch this one because I had such limited time to get it done. I really wanted to get this streamed before my surgery because I don't know if I'm going to be off for a couple days or not. I don't know how I'm going to feel after my procedure. So I really wanted to get this, streamed tonight. But I don't like this mother. And I don't think that she's doing her adult children any favors. If she's wanting to get the house so that she can have all of the children live there for God knows how long, and borrow the money from her mom. I'm sorry, borrow implies that you'll pay it back. I don't think you have the ability. I don't think you have the resources. And I don't think you have the financial maturity to understand what it means to be a homeowner. It's a lot of freaking work. I own my house. And I had to go a month without a working kitchen sink because I couldn't afford to get it fixed. If you don't know how to do the maintenance yourself, which ultimately I had to YouTube it and fix it myself. But if you don't know how to do that kind of stuff, it's expensive. And I don't think she has the resources to be able to do that. And what would probably end up happening in the long run is her adult children would get jobs to be able to support their mom. And that's not fair to them. Yeah. I worked 3 full-time jobs when I was pregnant with my kid. I had enrolled in CNA school at MATC Technical College right, very early in my pregnancy. I graduated 8 months pregnant, took my promissory testing, the state testing, 8 months pregnant. They couldn't even get the gate belt around me. I was a freaking house. They were scared to do some of the classroom stuff with me, because they were afraid I was going to go into labor one wrong move. Up until I ended up disabled, I worked my butt off. I mean, from the time I was 11 till I was 15, I did voluntary live-in elderly care. I was working for free as a kid just because other people needed help and I knew I could provide it. It's the concept of working 2 hours a week at a church to support myself just baffles my brain. I can't understand that. And one of the things that I'm the most excited about with my YouTube channel is it's an opportunity for financial independence eventually. I mean, obviously it's not going to happen overnight, but it's an opportunity for me that eventually I may be able to support myself off of the YouTube channel. And, that's why I do put so much work into editing these videos. That's why I do spend so much time, doing it. I can't have a normal job because absolutely no employer would take me with the number of conditions that I have. And, the fact that day to day, there's no guarantee of what I'll be able to do or not do. And, that I fall asleep at my desk while I'm editing and things like that. I can't tell you how many times I'd be working on a clip and I just, wake up with my face planted, big old red streak right across here. And it's because of my conditions and my medications and the sleep apnea and everything else. But there's not an employer in the world who's going to tolerate that kind of stuff. The only way that I can be financially independent is working for myself and doing something like this, which I absolutely love doing. So I don't know. I'm sorry. Sorry for the long rant. I'm sorry. It's just, it's under my skin. This woman and her lawyer trying to defend it. It's made me so frustrated. Okay. I'll shut up now. I love you.
And he, at that point, having the higher earning capacity, would be a lot easier to buy himself a home someplace else and obtain a mortgage than my client would be able to do. Even my client's mother co-signing on a mortgage in the Battle Creek area would be very difficult. She's from out of state. She's an older woman. She's retired. It would be very difficult for my client to be able to obtain a mortgage in this area under those circumstances. She's looked around. There just are not appropriate houses in the area for $95,000 for her to pay. And so she would probably be left with an apartment at that point. But we're asking the court to award her this marital home and to pay off Mr. Pardee. Now, it was described that in awarding Mr. Pardee the home and my client $95,000, that this would be a windfall to her. I don't believe that would be a windfall to her. I believe it would be her share of the marital settlement. I think that is part of the problem, and that is Mr. Pardee believes that he owns all of this property because he is the person who provided most of the work in order to purchase these things. And instead of, a partnership with my client where she would contribute in her way to the home by raising these children and homeschooling them and cleaning the house and cooking and doing all of these other things that she has done over the years to keep this house up and keep this family going. Therefore, she would have to take the $95,000 I guess, try to find an apartment with that amount and would have to reduce it immediately in order to handle her day-to-day costs and bills that she had for the home. Mr. Party didn't really tell us what his substantial bills are that would require that he doesn't have any money to pay anything to my client for spousal support or for her attorney fees. He talked about maintenance on the home, but these people haven't had a mortgage on that home in several years. They own several old paid off cars. I didn't hear anything about any student loans at this point in time. It is unclear which would cause Mr. Party to not have any money in order to pay anything to my client. I think that what would be a fair division of that issue would be to grant my client $1,000 a month in spousal support for a period of 5 years. And that she be granted the sum of $2,500 for her attorney fees. I understand she's had 4 attorneys. That isn't all of her fault at this situation. I don't think she'd have to get into the reason for that, but I think that that would be appropriate. And Mr. Pardik is asking for approximately $6,000 of bill that he had paid off earlier in this divorce case to be divided between my client and him. However, my client has, as she testified, $14,000 in credit cards that she has kept going during this divorce case, which she had at the time of their separation, in order to be able to support her and the kids until she was able to find work. The 2005 Civic, which has been valued at $758. Well, she's driving it and she does need it for herself and the children at this point, but she's going to have to get something else in order to, and that's going to reduce the sums that she is, she's going to be awarded from the situation. Now, the fact of the matter is that at least part of that Mustang was paid during the course of the marriage, and it should be considered for division between the parties. The fact that somebody owned something more than 20 years ago when they came into the marriage, it has been a long time. It has been commingled into the property going forward. And that is my client's concern, that anything of value in this home, Mr. Pardik is asking to be awarded to him at this point. The account at ADV of $3,000, as my client testified, is a nothing to either party. That is as a result of her son Bryce. It is not owed by her or Mr. Pardik. The account for her son Quentin is also a nothing. It is his money that he received when he graduated from high school, and so that should not be divided at this point in time. And my client asked to be awarded the half of the savings account, which she has kept into an account in case she had to pay it back. And in that regard, Your Honor, I would ask that the court grant a judgment of divorce, having found that there was a breakdown of the marriage relationship by way of the testimony. Award my client her 50% share of the 401k account. The marital home, subject to $95,000 paid to Mr. Pardik, a share of the 1999 Mustang, the 2005 Honda Civic, the rest of the property that we have already agreed on, the half of the $25,000 savings account, and to award Mr. Pardig his debt and what he's already paid off, award my client her debt at this time, $2,500 in attorney fees for my client, and $1,000 a month spousal support for a period of 5 years, in addition to physical custody of the children, parenting time as the court determines, and sole physical and legal custody of the children to my client.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Almoff, any additional argument?
Yeah,
So I typically pride myself on sharing both views, whether it's for the wife or against the wife, or for the husband or against the husband. I like to share both sides, regardless of what my opinion is. So I would just like to put it out there to everybody who's watching this on Replay Crew. If there had been anything in support of the wife, I would have posted it. If there wasn't.
yes, Your Honor. As it relates to the issue of legal custody, I would note that while the parties, excuse me, do disagree on whether the children should be homeschooled or not, a simple disagreement like that is not grounds to award one party sole legal custody, particularly in this situation where my client did not unilaterally register the kids in public school, did not take any of those types of actions that we usually see when parties simply cannot have joint legal custody. Instead, what he did was the right thing. He voiced his concerns throughout this court process and has voiced them at trial, both last week and again today in my closing, for Your Honor to make the determination. And of course, my client would honor and respect the court's ruling and follow it. There's no need to simply remove joint legal custody at this point when he did the right thing, when there was a disagreement. The issues regarding the children needing to be on Medicaid, that was born out of my client having lost his job almost immediately before the filing for divorce. And he did get the minor children onto health insurance as soon as he got a new job. I did not hear any testimony. The defendant testified regarding concerns regarding domestic violence, but I didn't hear any testimony regarding any actual physical violence in the marriage home throughout the marriage. Simply her concern and her indication that he was that he could at times be her claim that he could be verbally abusive, which he of course denies. For that reason, Your Honor, we would ask that the court continue the current temporary order and award the parties joint legal custody in addition to everything else that I had asked for in my closing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, that concludes, again, the argument and the proofs in this particular matter. I do note, as typically happens in these cases, that the parties have a number of issues that have occurred during the marriage, and I'll state that the court cannot correct or solve all the problems or difficulties that the parties experienced during their marriage. I can only resolve the disputes that exist at this time. The court has heard about various conduct during the marriage. The court is always struck by the fact that during a marriage, issues in conduct, which was seemingly abstruse and insignificant during the marriage, however, in light of the divorce proceeding, is raised as a character assassination in an attempt to disparage and demonstrate how deficient one of the parties is. Credibility is always a consideration in every case. Oftentimes, a party will allege that the other party or one of the witnesses is not truthful or lying. The court has found that inconsistencies in testimony does not mean that an individual has lied. Conflicting testimony can occur as a result of the witness's background, perception, bias, understanding, misunderstanding, or simply by mistake. When inconsistencies occur, the court will attempt to determine if they can be reconciled through other testimony or other evidence. There was conflicting testimony in this case on some point. which is typical of what the court sees. The court will assess the credibility of the witnesses and evidence presented in this particular case. The court would note as well in this matter that we probably, unfortunately, we don't have a great deal of testimony from other third parties that helps the court to reconcile testimony that was presented. Court is presented by much self-serving testimony, and the court is taking that into consideration. Court will find, based upon the testimony presented, that the parties have established the statutory basis. The court has found that there has been a breakdown of the marital relationship. As a result, the court will grant the divorce in this particular matter. I want to address first the personal property. The parties place a settlement on the record, and the court will incorporate that settlement into the judgment of divorce. Courts are bound by property settlements reached through negotiation and agreement of the parties, absent specific exceptions that don't exist here. That is the case of Lett v. Henson at 314 Mishap 587, 2016 case. The court will note that there was some testimony by the defendant that she does have clothing and other personal items at the house. The court will award those items of clothing, personal toiletry items, personal effects, maybe jewelry, things of that nature, will award that to her in addition to the other personal property. And the court will order that that be turned over to her no later than 14 days from today's date. When the court is deciding division of property, the court must first determine what marital property is. Marital property includes any assets which are accumulated through the joint efforts of the parties during the marriage. It includes all increases in net worth and may have occurred between the parties beginning at the marriage and ending at the time of the separation or filing. The defendant has alleged that the plaintiff has another 401k account, and she said it may be with Rossler. She claims this because she saw a letter which looked like another 401k statement. She didn't open the letter. She has not provided any other evidence of any other 401k account. The plaintiff testified that the Rossler 401k was cashed out and used towards the marital estate. The court will find that based upon the evidence, there is no other retirement account other than the one that the parties have agreed to divide. If it should turn out that another account is subsequently discovered, the court can divide this asset and consider any fraudulent action by the other parties. I'll cite the Niederlander case at 205 Mishap 123 of 1994 case. There does remain, again, a dispute as to some of the property. In making a property division, the court must make a fair and equitable division of the marital assets pursuant to Michigan Bylaw 552.19. The division may not be mathematically equal, but it must be equitable. There's not an exhaustive list of factors that the court must consider to determine what is equitable. However, in Sands v. Sands at 442 Mich 30, 1993 case, the Supreme Court held that the court must use its discretion considering all the circumstances of the case. And the Supreme Court in Sparks v. Sparks did provide a non-exhaustive list, which includes the duration of the marriage, contribution of the parties to the marital estate, age of the parties, health of the parties, life status of the parties, necessities and circumstances of the parties, earning abilities of the parties, past relationship and conduct of the parties, and general principles of equity. The Supreme Court held all these factors may not apply, and the court does not have to give equal weight to each of the particular factors. And looking at the duration, the parties were married back on November 16, 2002. As of the date of the filing of the papers, the parties had been married approximately 20.5 years, having separated back on April 10, 2023. The contributions, the court does not look at contribution of any specific asset, but contribution to the marriage as a whole. Both parties contributed their income and contributed in other ways during the marriage. As to the age, the plaintiff is 47, defendant is 43. The health of the parties, the plaintiff has testified that he has no health issues. The defendant claims that she has Lyme disease, migraines, hypothyroid disease, which she claims is under control, asthma, allergies.
Hypochondriac, maybe a touch of Munchausen. We're not entirely certain.
Etc. She has stated that her condition does not keep her from providing for the children. And court would note she has not provided any medical evidence to substantiate any of her medical conditions. Next, life status or established standard of living. The parties have maintained a good lifestyle and have acquired various, obviously, assets during the marriage, although have not acquired substantial assets given the term of the marriage. And it looks like, based upon the testimony, the parties have somewhat struggled financially throughout the marriage. Next, necessities and the circumstances of the parties, and we'll discuss.
Hi, Adrian. I'm glad you were able to join us tonight. Philip's just bringing me all my new friends. Much love. I'm giving my neighbor a hand. I am here, guys. I promise. And I'll be right back into chat just as soon as I get this set up for her. All right. I love you guys.
Discuss that a little bit later. Next is earning abilities. There is a disparate earning ability between the parties. And the court can consider that if the court wants to make an unequal division of property. In the income, the court will note that the defendant has an income of now $100,000 per year, which is the most that he's ever made. His prior job that he was fired from was approximately $87,000 just a few months before this one. So unfortunately, he was fired, but it turns out that it probably was fortuitous as he has acquired greater and better employment. The defendant works at the church where she works between 3, maybe 4 hours per week at a rate of $10.46 per hour, resulting, if I take the 4 hours, resulting in an income to her of $41.84 per week. She also works at an assisted living home where she has worked for approximately 2 months. She works 2 12-hour shifts at $15 per hour, or makes $360 per week. Her combined income in these two jobs would be just in excess of $400 per week. The court will also take into account general principles of equity in this matter as well. When we look at the real property, the parties did purchase a home at 220 Feld Avenue approximately 16 years ago. And the house is on a 1.5 acre parcel that it's a 3-bedroom home, 2-bath, full basement. Both parties want the home. The home was appraised at $190,000. Each party would have a 1/2 interest of $95,000 in the home. The plaintiff is in the home. He's maintained it and paid all the expenses on the home since the parties separated on April 10, 2023. The defendant has, obviously she has limited income, but she has not, since the separation, contributed in any way to the maintenance of the home. And the court will note, and I will address that when we talk about custody issues, the court notes that the plaintiff likewise did not contribute towards the support of the children until such time as a support order went into effect. Again, the defendant testified at length that if she got the home, that her mother would either loan or give her the money to buy out the plaintiff. The plaintiff had testified that he could acquire, again, a loan and he could pay off the defendant. And again, in this particular matter, the court does note that based upon her income at the current time, that she would have difficulty maintaining the household with the expenses, although I would state the parties were very deficient in their testimony, and that nobody presented any proofs as to what their expenses were. Either the plaintiff, as it relates to the house, he just stated that he had substantial expenses and that he therefore didn't have any sufficient amount of, I guess you'd say, disposable income. The defendant, which we'll address later as we address the issues of best interest factors, and as we address the spousal support issue, she rendered no testimony as to any of her expenses, bills, things of that particular nature. When the court looks at, again, all of these particular factors and awarding the property to the respective parties, the court does believe that it is appropriate, and the court will award the house to the plaintiff in this matter, and would order that he pay the defendant her equity of $95,000 within 120 days of today's date. Defendant testified that she can't buy a good home for $95,000, but she did testify that her mother would probably provide her with some assistance in buying a home. So maybe she can't buy one for that particular amount, but with the assistance of her mother. And if she were to acquire full-time employment, that would help and assist her in qualifying for a mortgage and doing that. The parties have a number of vehicles. The defendant has a Honda Civic in her possession valued at $758. The defendant took this vehicle when she left because she said it was the most dependable of all the vehicles. The court will award that Honda Civic to her at the $758. It's also testified that there is a Pontiac Aztek at the home that is basically worth scrap value in this matter. The court will note that the defendant testified that this vehicle hasn't been driven in 6 to 7 years. And what happens, the court will award that vehicle to the defendant. She can take that and have it scrapped and get the monies from that vehicle. The plaintiff has in his possession a 2004 Chrysler Town and Country. Plaintiff claims that that is scrap value. Defendant testified that the plaintiff drove this vehicle, it was his vehicle. She testified that it had a radiator leak and obviously some issues as to its drivability. The court will award the Town and Country to the plaintiff at that particular scrap value. The parties also own a GMC Yukon worth $420, which plaintiff wants to keep because it has the hitch for the boats. The defendant testified that it has electrical problems and it was last driven in April of 2023. The court will award this vehicle to the plaintiff with a value of $420. The parties also have a 1999 Ford Mustang, with both acknowledge the plaintiff had when the parties met. Again, the parties were married on November 16, 2002. The plaintiff testified that the vehicle was paid off in June of 2003. So there were approximately 7 payments of $500 made on the vehicle during the marriage. Defendant testified that the vehicle has been sitting in the garage for 15 years. And during the 20-year marriage, and after sitting for 16 years, the court does not believe that the vehicle has appreciated or has any significant marital value. The court will award the vehicle to the plaintiff as his premarital vehicle with 0 value. As I stated, I don't believe that based upon the condition of the vehicle or having sat for 15 years that it has any substantial value, considering the minimal amount of payments made effectively 20 years ago in this matter. Parties also had some boats. The plaintiff owned a John boat and trailer, which both parties testified he owned prior to the marriage. The John boat and trailer will be awarded to the plaintiff as his premarital property. Plaintiff's father also gifted the party a rowboat and a ski boat and trailer approximately 5 years ago. Defendant testified that the boat were she said they were gifted to us. There's no testimony or evidence that the boats were gifted to both parties, as the boat and trailers were gifted from the plaintiff's father. As held in Brookhouse v. Brookhouse at 286 Mich 151, 1938 case, gifts are to be treated as the donee's spouse's separate property. The court believes that the boats and the trailers were gifted by plaintiff's father to the plaintiff, and as a result, the court will grant to him those vehicles or those boats at no value. The only other item of property is that both parties want the marital queen bed. It has a value of $50.
Ooh, who's gonna get the bed? It would just be too much work to move it out of the house. Just get a new damn bed.
The plaintiff has used that obviously since the separation, and presumably as the defendant has testified, she's staying in another bedroom at the house she's in. On the second level, she has a bed in that house, but she would have to acquire. At $50, it is a de minimis value. The court will award that bed to the plaintiff in this particular matter. The parties maintained a joint account at Fifth Third, which had approximately $26,000 in it. The defendant removed $13,095 when she left, and she still has this money. The plaintiff used his half of the money to pay bills and other expenses. The court will award the parties one half of this account, with each retaining the one half that they had previously took or used in this particular matter. The parties also had a Fifth Third savings account of $590. This account was closed by the plaintiff. Each of the parties is awarded one half of this amount, or $295, which the plaintiff shall pay the one half, the $295, to the defendant within 90 days of today's date. Parties also had another joint account with Fifth Third with the amount of $817, and each of the parties awarded one half of this account, or $408.50. Plaintiff shall pay the $408.50 to the defendant within 90 days of today's date. Defendant is joint on an account with her son Quentin with approximately $10,591. Defendant testified that this account was set up with Quentin's graduation money, of which $10,000 came from plaintiff's parents. The plaintiff acknowledged that this account was Quentin's, but then testified he wanted one half to protect the interest of Quentin. His claims are inconsistent with the testimony and the facts in the case. The court will hold that this account is Quentin's account, and the parties have no interest in these funds. Next, I want to address the debts of the party. The parties have the following debts. They had a Fifth Third credit card, which was in the defendant's name in the amount of $432, and there was another Fifth Third credit card in plaintiff's name. They had a balance of $5,212, a Cabela's account with a balance of $516. The plaintiff paid off all of these after the filing in this matter. Due to the substantial earnings and his ability to pay, and considering the equities of the case, and the fact that, again, the defendant would be called upon to dissipate her assets to pay the one half of this debt, one half being $3,080. What the court will do is the court will simply at this point will not require that the defendant pay half of these debts totaling the $3,080. And I'm taking into consideration issues of spousal support, which I will address in a moment. Defendant took out a loan at Advia Credit Union in the amount of $3,000 after filing. Defendant testified that this was a loan taken by her son Bryce, which she co-signed on. She testified she believed it would paid off or would be paid off, and the court will find that this is not a marital debt, but was a debt owed by Bryce and or the defendant in the event that he doesn't pay that because of, again, co-signing on that debt. The defendant has alleged that the plaintiff maintained cash in the safe. The plaintiff acknowledged that there was a time when there was approximately 15,000, but that was many years ago, and 10,000 was used to purchase the Yukon vehicle. The balance was used during the term of the marriage. The defendant has not submitted any evidence to substantiate any cash, so the court will disregard this self-serving testimony. She only gave generalized testimony that there was or had been some cash in the safe. The court will find that there was no cash in the safe to be divided. Next, I want to address spousal support. Spousal support is awarded pursuant to Michigan Compiled Laws 552.23, which states, upon entry of a judgment of divorce or separate maintenance, if the estate and effects awarded to either party are insufficient for the suitable support and maintenance of either the party and any children of the marriage who have committed to the care and custody of either party, court may also award to either party the part of the real or personal estate or either party and spousal support out of the real and personal estate. In this matter, there are a number of issues the court has to consider in awarding spousal support. Court must note that the pleadings in the case must allege facts sufficient to establish the need for support and the ability of the other party to pay pursuant to Michigan Court Rule 3.206 parens 5. The court will address in this matter various factors pursuant to the Louts case at 298 Mishap 21 at 2012 case. Many of those go and are consistent with the division of assets and the factors under Sparks. First is the past relations and the conduct of the parties. Typically, we look at in those things, is there an addiction? Is there abuse? Things of that nature. Court will note there's been no testimony as to any addiction in this matter. There was testimony that the parties equally engaged in and did smoke marijuana prior to the marriage. Court would note that that's been legalized in Michigan, and as a result, the court cannot put much weight in that in consideration of the legalization. The length of the marriage, as stated, it's just over about 20 and a half years. The ability of the parties to work, the court finds that, again, the parties do each have the ability to work. The plaintiff is working full-time, making a good income. Court will find, as they did at the time of the temporary hearing, that the defendant is underemployed in this particular case, that she has income in this matter of, she works for the church, as I stated previously, and that she works for the assisted living where she works 2 12-hour shifts and has the income, as I've already mentioned. Age of the parties, the plaintiff is 47, the defendant is 43.
I want him to mention Granny's pills. He said that there weren't any addictions, but it was kind of hinted to.
Three, the ability to pay. Obviously, with income that the plaintiff has, he does have some ability to pay, notwithstanding any of the claimed deficiencies or inabilities that he had stated. Present situation of the parties, the court is taking the present situation of the parties into consideration in this matter. The needs of the parties, as stated, the court was quite struck that neither of the parties in this matter addressed any of their needs, addressed any of their bills, any of their expenses, and that is obviously somewhat of an issue in this matter.
He did 16 years ago.
The party. The court notes the defendant half-heartedly provided and stated that the plaintiff was at fault because of this marital affair that he had. The plaintiff acknowledged the affair, but it was 16 years ago.
Here it is.
Obviously, 16 years prior to the separation was not cause for the breakdown of the marriage, as the parties had able to get past that and effectively were married far longer after that situation occurred than they were prior to that. And so the court will not consider this as a dispositive of fault in this particular matter. Next,
Good.
prior standard of living and is either responsible for the support of others. Court does note, as they stated, the parties had a good standard of living. They had acquired the house, they paid it off. That goes to their I guess, diligence in that and getting that taken care of, giving that a priority. But as noted, as we went through the other assets, the parties did not have substantial other assets to show that they did live I guess you'd say a high lifestyle, or a lifestyle such commensurate with the income that they had.
And so I gotta pause at this moment. And I'm sorry, but to me, her lawyer and her could be twins. Not twins, sisters. Their facial expressions and even their features look very similar. Like, yeah, they're not twins, but wow, they could be related. Yeah, they both do. They both do. RBF. Yes. Yes, they are. I'm sorry, they do. It's the Grouch sisters. Yes. Yep. Grumpsalotopus. Sorry, apparently that's what their dinosaur name would be. Grumpsalotopus. Oh, Philip Hughes, my innocent, sweet, sweet friend. It's resting bitch face. It's when no matter what, when you're just sitting there, you look like a bitch. Grouchetta, and Miserbella. Oh, it seems that way. It really does. But I mean, I don't think she is, but I don't know. It's just crazy how much they resemble each other sometimes. Like, throughout this whole hearing, I've been thinking that. I don't even know where that came from. It just slipped out. I was trying to think of something, like the Grouch sisters, and that just right there. Oh, I love you guys so much. Yes. The mouth, especially. The frown. Yeah.
Contribution of the parties to the joint estate. The court would note that the parties did jointly contribute to the estate, although it was in different ways. The defendant did work part-time at different jobs at different times, but she did contribute by maintaining the household, raising the children, things of that nature. Next factor, the effect of cohabitation on the parties' financial status. There's no testimony about that. Next is general principles of equity, which the court is taking into consideration. When the court does consider this, the court does believe that there is a basis and appropriate to the court to award rehabilitative temporary spousal support to the defendant. Again, the court notes that she is underemployed, and even in there that she babysits for free on a regular basis. Now, she said she trades that off against car repairs, and that's good, but still, that is something that she does show she's underemployed. Court can utilize rehabilitative alimony to encourage a spouse to seek full-time employment. That's the Wiley v. Wiley case at 214 Mishap 6 14 in 1995 case, and to allow the spouse to adjust to a lifestyle not based upon the combined incomes of the party. And that's the Vautitidis case at 195, Mishap 338, 1992 case. So the court does believe that rehabilitative spousal support is appropriate in this matter to allow her to, again, develop her self-sufficiency in this matter. The court will therefore, based upon all of the evidence and testimony, will award to defendant temporary rehabilitative spousal support in gross, which is non-modifiable, in the amount of $500 per month for a period of 3 years, which will commence the first day of the month following entry of the judgment of divorce and continuing for that 36 months in total. Next, the court will address the issue of custody in this matter. Custody is governed by the Child Custody Act, being MCL 722.21 at sec. The court notes that, and the parties know that, first, the court will note that pursuant to Michigan Compiled Law 722.26A, that the party shall be advised of joint custody, and the court shall consider an award of joint custody. The court shall consider whether joint custody is in the best interest of the child pursuant to the best interest of the child test, which we will examine in a moment. And also, the court determine whether the parties are able to cooperate and generally agree concerning important decisions affecting the welfare of the child or children. The first task in any case, however, as the attorneys know, is to determine if an established custodial environment exists. An established custodial environment exists if over an appreciable time, the child or children naturally look to the custodian in an environment for guidance, discipline, necessities of life, and parental comfort. The statute provides that the age of the child, the physical environment, and the inclination of the custodian and the child to the permanency of the relationship shall be considered. If an established custodial environment exists, the court cannot change the established custodial environment unless presented by clear and convincing evidence that it is in the best interest of the children. If no established custodial environment exists, the burden of proof is preponderance of evidence. The legislature has enacted the clear and convincing burden of proof to minimize the prospect of unwarranted and disruptive change in custody, and to erect a barrier against the removal of the children from an established custodial environment, except in the most compelling cases. And I'll cite Baker v. Baker at 411 Mich. 567, a 1981 case. The court will note in establishing an established custodial environment, I'm impressed that the plaintiff testified that the boys would come to him when they have a problem. He testified that he'd provided them guidance. He told them what to do when they feel bad. He testified he was not involved in homeschooling prior to the separation, that he had tried to teach them skills such as carpentry, electronics. An example, he said, building a sundial. Defendant testified for the most part of the marriage, she'd been a stay-at-home mom, and she worked only outside of the home on a limited part-time basis. She testified the boys listened to her. When she has the boys with her, she communicates, or when they're not with her, she communicates with them on a daily basis. She's been the parent responsible for setting up and maintaining the homeschooling. She acquired the Medicaid for the boys. She involved the boys in 4-H, that she has had custody since the separation on April 10, 2023. And in this particular matter, when the court considers all the factors that the court has to look at as to where there's guidance, discipline, necessity of life, and parental comfort, the court is firmly convinced that the established custodial environment in this particular case does reside in, if you would, with the defendant mother. So the court will, in fact, so hold that the custodial environment exists with her. As a result, the plaintiff would be required to show by clear and convincing evidence that it's in the best interest of the children to, in fact, change the custody, and the defendant only needs to show by a preponderance of evidence that it's in the best interest that she maintain custody. Court looks at the best interest of the child test as provided for under MCL 722.23, and we'll go through those factors at this time. The first is the love, affection, and other emotional ties existing between the parties involved. And in this matter, it does appear in looking at that particular factor that the boys do, the plaintiff had testified that he had a close bond with the boys. He testified about engaging in activities with them. He tells them they're loved and he reassures them. He lets them know he loves them. He gives and gets hugs from the boys. And his sister Paula Saunders had testified that plaintiff was a great dad and there was a strong loving bond and he shows them affection. The defendant testified about her relationship with the boys. Again, likewise, having a loving, affectionate relationship with, again, emotional ties in this particular matter. When the court looks at this particular factor, the court does believe that both of the parties have a loving, affectionate relationship with the boys, and the court will consider this factor to be equal between the parties. Next factor is the capacity and disposition of the parties involved to give the child, or in this case, children, love, affection, guidance, and continuation in the education and raising them in a particular religion or creed. There's two things, the capacity and disposition. As stated, the parties both have the capacity as they've done it. They somewhat have the disposition, and they've provided that. However, the court does note this factor also does look at the continuation of the education and raising them in a particular religion. The defendant was the one that has, again, provided the homeschooling for the boys, and she's the one that's continued the education. The plaintiff testified that he is not involved in homeschooling now, but he was before, and before the separation, he did help. Court notes that defendant testified she set up the homeschooling, that she was the one that did it on a day-to-day basis, and the plaintiff testified he didn't want to continue homeschooling, whereas the defendant wanted to. Court will note that the testimony was from both parties that the plaintiff bragged that when the children were in the homeschooling with the defendant that they were doing better than they did in the public schools. Court notes also that both of the parties take the boys to church. However, the testimony of the defendant was that the plaintiff quit going about 7 years ago and only recently started going again. When I look at this particular, the issue of the continuation of education and raising the children in a particular religion or creed, it does show that this factor does favor the defendant mother. Next factor is the capacity and disposition of the parties involved to provide the children with food, clothing, medical care, and other remedial care recognized under the law in place of medical care. Both of the parties acknowledged that the plaintiff was the primary breadwinner. The defendant had limited income, but since the separation, she has provided for the boys. Court will note she didn't get any financial assistance from the plaintiff until late June or July, when the support order kicked in and went into effect. The plaintiff testified that he didn't give defendant any money because she never asked for money. He had to know that she didn't have much money to provide for the boys, and yet at no point did he ever offer any financial assistance. The defendant testified that she was solely responsible for, again, the medical, dental appointments for the boys, and the plaintiff confirmed this as well during the prior to the separation of the parties. Court does believe that this factor does favor defendant mother. Next factor is the length of time that children have lived in a stable, satisfactory environment and the desirability of maintaining continuity. In plaintiff's home, obviously, that's the marital home. There is stability and consistency. The defendant is residing with friends, which is less than ideal circumstances, but she has expressed a desire to move, and testimony that her friends would prefer that she move as well. When a court considers this factor, the court finds that this factor does favor the plaintiff. Next factor is the permanency of the family unity of the existing or proposed custodial home or homes. Both parties testified that there are no significant other and there are no plans for such. And there's been no testimony as to either of them having a significant other, the court will find that this factor does weigh equally as to both of the parties. Next factor is the moral fitness of the parties involved. Again, as stated, she testified that the plaintiff had an extramarital affair, which he acknowledged 16 years ago. And as the court previously stated, this did not result in a breakdown of the marriage. She testified that the plaintiff had previously would drink and use marijuana, testified that she would use marijuana as well. The court will find that this factor does weigh equally as to both parties. Next factor is the mental and physical health of the parties. There's no testimony by either party as to the other having any mental health issues. The defendant did testify about numerous health issues that she had, which I had previously addressed, but she testified they were under control. They did not interfere with her care of the boys. And there was no testimony about the plaintiff having any physical health concerns. The court will find that this factor is equal as to both parties. Next factor is the homeschooling community record. There's a lot of testimony about homeschooling, 4-H, which principally involved in by the defendant. The boys through homeschooling also had many other classes and activities that they did. And there was testimony about the boys being involved in the group called Wild Boys, camping trips and things of that nature. The court will find that, again, there's not much as it relates to community other than the homeschool community, but that is something that the defendant has been responsible for engaging the boys in. And as a result, the court will find that this factor does favor defendant mother. Next factor is the reasonable preference of the children. If the court considers them of sufficient age to express a preference, the court did have a chance to interview all three boys, found them to be very delightful and very straightforward and very astute, and get to give a reasonable preference, which the court is taking into consideration in making a determination in this matter. Next factor is the willingness and ability of each of the parties' parents to facilitate and encourage a close and continued parent-child relationship between the child and the other parent. In this matter, it appears that the parties have been cooperative in exchanging the parenting time, although not always. They have had some difficulties. There have been testimonies that the plaintiff has not always been flexible in changing schedules. But notwithstanding that, the order of the court does state that that is the schedule. And if they can't agree, that they have to abide by that. When defendant was questioned about what she believed was appropriate for parenting time, she
Amber Pardik. Say it a couple times quickly.
testified. Well, first, the court will note that during the 9 weeks after the separation, she did not provide any parenting time to the plaintiff, even though he had asked her on a number of occasions. When, again, she was questioned as to what would be appropriate parenting time, she stated that she didn't believe that he should get Wednesdays because it was disruptive to their lives and their schedule. Court, quite frankly, finds this position to be horrendous and damaging to the children and completely insensitive to the boys' needs as an involvement of both children in their lives.
Yes.
The court would note there have been a number of studies where parties have basically exhibited contention against another party in a divorce. And they have found that when the parties are not, I guess you say, able to resolve or work amiably among themselves, that when there's an adversarial relationship, the court notes that they have shown that the children have greater than 50% chance of engaging in delinquent behavior. They have a greater than 50% chance of ending up getting divorced themselves when they're adults and after marriage. And they have a much greater chance of actually having a criminal record and being incarcerated based upon the adversarial relationship of the parents. As a result, in looking at, again, those particular factors, the court will find that this factor does favor the plaintiff father. Next factor is the
Judge is
domestic
so right.
violence, regardless of whether the violence was directed against or witnessed by the children. The defendant has testified that there was domestic violence in the home. However, on cross-examination, she acknowledged that she did not acquire a personal protective order, that she never called the police. The court would note she did not have, and although the court notes that, again, a PPO or calling the police is not dispositive of whether domestic violence occurs in the home, there was absolutely no evidence to corroborate her testimony concerning this factor other than her own self-serving testimony. Typically, in these particular matters, when that is alleged, the court will find, again, corroborating testimony or some evidence to demonstrate that it has occurred. The court finds no factual evidentiary basis to support a claim of domestic violence. The court will find that this factor weighs equally as to both parties. Next factor is any other factor considered by the court to be relevant to the particular child custody dispute. Court would note in this matter that the plaintiff had testified, and he testified the kids were well taken care of and that he did not have any concerns. Also, the court would note if the defendant has custody, that they would be able to have a continuing relationship with their stepbrother, Bryce, for whom they had grown up with. So the court is taking all of that into consideration. Court does feel that that does slightly favor defendant mother in this matter. When the court looks at all the factors under the best interest of the child test, the court will note that, again, the court looks at those factors. There's ample case law that says the court can weigh those factors disproportionately. They don't have to weigh them all equally, but it does appear to this court that when weighing those factors, that the defendant mother has established the burden of proof necessary to maintain and retain custody of the children. The court will award to her the physical custody of the minor children. The court does note that, again, in this matter, that as the court had stated, the court was required to and did advise the parties of joint custody in this matter. The question is whether the parties are able to cooperate and generally agree, not whether they agree all the time. Often it is difficult for the parties to cooperate when going through a divorce. This occurs because there's so much upheaval and in everyone's lives, and obviously there's a lot of emotional issues that they're dealing with as they're going through the divorce. However, I found that typically when the divorce is over, these things calm down and the parties are able to work together. And if they aren't, as typically sometimes they aren't, then the parties can always come to the court and seek an order of the court to determine if, in fact, the court would resolve any particular issues. When I consider all of these factors, the court does believe that joint legal custody is appropriate, and the court will grant to the parties joint legal custody. Next, the court has to look at and consider
I like that.
issue of parenting time pursuant to Michigan Compiled Law 722.27A and look at those particular factors. The factors under the statute is whether any special circumstances or needs of the child or children. There are no special circumstances or needs. Second factor is whether the child is less than 1 year of age. That's not applicable. Next, likelihood of abuse or neglect of a child during parenting time. There's been no testimony about that. Next, likelihood of abuse of a parent during the exercise of parenting time. Likewise, no testimony to demonstrate that. Next factor is inconvenience or burdensome impact of travel on the child or children. No testimony as to any burdensome issues. The parties do live relatively close proximity, and so that court doesn't find that to be applicable in this case. Next is whether the parent is reasonably expected to exercise ordered parenting time. The court does note that the plaintiff has exercised all of his parenting time.
No, Tim.
Next is whether parents frequently fail to exercise parenting time, which he is not. Next is threatened or actual detention of the child or children. There's been no testimony about that in this matter. And next, any other relevant factors. When I consider other relevant factors, the court does consider relevant factor being that children are homeschooled, and as a result, being homeschooled, they have less of a rigid school schedule that would necessitate, again, a typical, what I call standard particular parenting time. What the court is going to do in this particular matter, the court does believe that based upon the testimony that the plaintiff does have a good relationship with boys and that that's not hindered in any way by their school schedules. What the court is going to do is going to continue the alternating weekends, but the court is going to expand those to Thursday at 6:00 p.m. through Sunday at 6:00 p.m. Court will move the midweek to Tuesday from 4 to 8 as a result, because he had Thursday, so I don't want Wednesday, Thursday, et cetera, as well as alternating holidays and alternating weeks in the summer.
Yes.
In this particular matter, the court next has to address the issue of child support. The plaintiff does make income of $100,000 a year. As stated previously, the court finds that the defendant is underemployed, and I've delineated her income at the current time, but court notes that at the time of the temporary order, the court did impute a full-time minimum wage or income of $15 an hour. Again, the climate, the labor climate in Battle Creek area is again consistent with parties having full employment. There, you go down the street and you'd say 9 out of 10 businesses have help wanted signs in the window or out in front of the business. We see signs all over us that are hiring. So the court does find that she would be able to acquire full-time employment. The court does believe that at the current time that could be at the $15 per hour. So the court will impute the full-time to her of $600 per hour and the income of $100,000 per year to the plaintiff in this matter for purposes of calculating support, which will recalculate it because he now has the additional one overnight every other weekend. Court will note in this particular matter that again the defendant had testified that she had some health issues, and the court's not minimizing those for purposes of her full-time employment, but the court notes that she does work 2 12-hour shifts at the assisted living, and particularly the court did ask her at that point whether she was able to handle that and whether she was able to, if it presented any issues concerning any physical problems for her to work those 12-hour shifts. She stated it did not. She also testified that it did not have any impact upon her care of the boys. So the court will find if she can work those 12-hour shifts, clearly she's able to work 8-hour shifts as well without having any particular difficulties or problems in this matter. I think as I look back now that this does appear that this is, I'm sorry, I had one other issue here that court has to address that was addressed was the issue of attorney fees. Michigan follows the American rule, which provides that attorney fees are not recoverable unless expressly allowed by statute, court rule, common law exception, or conduct. As stated in Hanaway versus Hanaway at 208, Mishap 278 in 1995 case, where the parties were forced to incur attorney fees as a result of the unreasonable conduct of the other party. That is not applicable in a situation in this particular case.
Funny. I love you.
Under Michigan Court Rule 3.206(d), attorney fees or expenses incurred as a result, again, for the other party failing to comply with the prior orders of the court or failing to engage in discovery, that attorney fees would be appropriate in this matter. Again, the court doesn't find that this case falls under the court rule, as there's nothing, the plaintiff did not fail to comply with the prior orders of the court, and he did not engage in any discovery practices in violation of the court rules in this particular matters. There is a case, a Hanaway case, as previously stated and cited, that states that an award of attorney fees is not appropriate where parties were awarded comparable property and have comparable income. Court does note that the defendant does not have comparable income. The court has to look at, again, the reasonableness of the hourly charges, look at the reasonable number of hours expended, the difficulty of the issues, the amounts established after consideration of these two factors. The court has to look at, would representation preclude other employment by the attorney, the amounts involved and the results obtained. Next factor, time limitations caused by the client of the case, the difficulty of the case, the length of the relationship with the client, experience, reputation, and ability of the attorney, fixed or contingent fee, and the court has to look at all of those particular factors. The court, the court does note that in this matter, also that the court notes that the
You go
defendant
get
has
him,
asked for
Tiger.
a sum of $2,500 in attorney fees. The court does note that she does have in her possession still, as she stated, she still has the $12,000 plus that she removed from that account. That in fact,
Much love.
she has not used
Thank you
those
for
funds,
coming.
that she had testified as well, that she, again, that court will note that she has not testified as to any of those particular factors that the court had just went through, that the court has to consider for purposes of award attorney fees.
I
And
understand
the court
you.
does believe that with the funds that she has, court also notes that the court had forgiven her of the responsibility of contributing towards the debts that the plaintiff paid after the filing, her portion of which would be $3,000. So considering the equities in this case, the court is going to, in fact, not award any attorney fees in order that the parties would pay their own respective attorney fees in this case. With that, I think that resolves all the issues between the parties. I'll ask Mr. Umlauf, is there anything that you believe that the court has not addressed or needs to address before we conclude?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Kirkpatrick, is there anything you believe that the court has failed to address or needs to address before we conclude?
I assume that you are not ordering that the children be placed in public school currently.
Correct. I'm glad you mentioned that because I meant to say that and I simply had not written it down at this point. Again, based upon, again, the testimony showing that the kids had done a better job in homeschooling than in public schools. The court does not find a basis at this time or a reason for changing that. So the court would order that they continue in the homeschooling at the current time, unless in the future it became necessary and there was sufficient proofs to warrant placing them in public school.
I love you, Nicola Maxwell.
Anything else, Ms. Kirkpatrick?
No, that was my only question, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'll direct Mr. Umlauf that you would prepare the appropriate judgment of divorce and the UCSO and other paperwork as necessary and submit it to the front of the court for approval and then to the court, and at which time the court will enter it at that time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The court will end this matter at 10:05 a.m. You're free to go. Have a good day.
But we all must keep in mind the very important parts of this case. The most important part, from the very beginning, we learned that he's getting the Playboy arcade game and half the meat in the freezer. Can't beat that with a stick. Oh my golly, that was a fun one. Yes, that is what we have all learned. I don't know. I'm not even sure if the judge put the actual amount on record. He said that it was going to need to be recalculated due to the addition of another day for the father's parenting time, because the father's parenting time went from just having them, on I think it was every other weekend plus 1 weekday, or it might have been every weekend plus 1 weekday. But regardless, he was given an additional day. So that's amazing. Thursday through Sunday. And, the spousal support doesn't tick me off so much because, for one thing, it's only $500 a month. Can't do a whole lot with that. You can't live off that for damn sure. And it's only for 3 years, so it's got a time limit on it. And, she doesn't have a work history. She doesn't have any degree or skills. She never finished her degree, and I'm sorry, but that essential oils class is not going to take her very far. So the 3 years of spousal support will give her time to build a work history and perhaps some work ethic. So, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I have one more thing. Don't completely leave, everybody. Please stick around for just one more minute. If you would like to see something very fun, and I promise you, I am the only one that's going to be able to bring it to you. So this is my gift to you, because I am not sure. Oh yeah. Yes. That was probably my favorite part. It was probably my favorite part. And he didn't. Okay, so the mom claimed many, many medical issues, and I don't want to judge her. I do judge her. Don't get me wrong. I do, but I don't want to. Here's the thing. I have lots of medical issues, and you guys don't even know all of them. And I'm not going to get into them all, but if I were to actually list all of the medical issues that I have, you guys would legitimately think that I was making them up. But here's the difference. I have paperwork backing everything, I've got MRIs and tests and blood work and results, that prove that I legitimately have the conditions that I have. As the judge stated, she's got lots of claims and absolutely no proof backing those claims. So I find it really hard to, I can't connect with her on that level, I'm disabled, and I've got a lot of my disabilities that I have are invisible diseases, as they call them. So, looking at me, you don't know what I have, and that's fine with me. But, for her, she just has all these claims. And so I can't feel that sympathy for her like I do for many disabled people. I connect with them on a level that a lot of people don't even understand, because I know what it's like, and I know what it's like to not be believed. But that's when you're the most proactive about going to the doctor and getting results, So anyways, I don't know how many days I'm going to be off. I might be able to be back tomorrow. But I'm not going to sweat it. I'm going to have my surgery tomorrow and try to sleep and take meds. And if I do stream, it may be from my bed. Yeah. Oh, Salty Buddha, please don't. You're breaking my heart. I don't even want to hear that, dude. And you have all my love right now. Wow. I don't even know. Yeah, and see, like I'm one, like I don't want to put people's like personal business up there. So like I don't want you guys to think that I'm ignoring your comments. But you know, the internet's forever. You know? So yeah. Oh. I haven't told anybody. I kind of told Iris. Long story short, y'all know I hate sports, but for some reason, a baseball decided to grow on me and it doesn't belong where it is. So they're going to remove it and biopsy it. So that's what I'm having done tomorrow. That's why I'm nervous. That's why freaking out a little bit about it. But it'll be okay. I know it will be. Just send me lots of good vibes and love and stuff. But yeah. Thank you. All right. Okay. I have another clip. That's where I was going. I just have to plug. I have to disconnect. Hold up. I have to disconnect. No, wait. I've got a USB over here. Aha. All right. Y'all ready for this? Because this is glorious. I'm telling you. And you cannot get this anywhere else. This is an April Seering exclusive. No one else is going to have this. I guarantee it.
Okay, I already swore you in. What
I
is,
would like to, just let me speak, Your Honor, just for about 20 seconds. I want to waive everything. I'm a certified paralegal. I got my paralegal degree at IYC and my high school diploma and my Ball State University degree at IYC. And I know all about the court system. I know how to go through it. I know what to waive, and I'm in here for a probation violation, just for an infraction, no new felony or misdemeanor, no new disposition charges. And I don't want to wait until the next court date for evidentiary hearing and get sentenced. I want to get sentenced today. I want to waive all my rights. I want you to read me all my rights if you want to, or I just don't want no attorney. I want to pro se myself in court. There's nothing wrong with me. I got my degree. I can show you my certificates. And I'm in here. I got a 1-year misdemeanor. I got 2 months good time in, 4 months left. There's no new charges, no new warrants, nowhere in the world. Just 4 months left. And I don't wanna, you put me 4 months in the county jail, sentence me there, or 4 months work release, or 4 months home detention, but I don't want probation. Cause I can't go back to my house. I moved out of my house because the lady couldn't pay half her rent without selling dope to pay that half, and that's what got me here. And I
okay,
don't want nothing to do with her no more. I don't want nothing to do with the department no more. My clothes are not there no more. I don't live there no more, so I'm homeless. But I can't give you another home. I get disability. You know, I can get a job with disability if I wanted to make more money and show my skills and much more of a career income to the fact, but I don't, because I don't make money off of people's well-being.
okay.
You know,
Mr. Schmidt, can I explain something, please?
Yes.
The prosecutor is not here today, so we can't go forward with an admission on a violation. This is just an initial hearing. It's up to the
Is it court
prosecutor.
hearing, you mean?
This hearing today, it's up to the prosecutor whether they come to this hearing or not. They're not here today, and if they're not here, then we cannot do an admission. I cannot sentence you today. So we need to go through all these other steps first. Your next court hearing is going to be on December 20th. We'll get to that at the end. So would you please state your full legal name?
My full legal name is Paul Shane Smith, but my real dad is Paul Shane Woodrum, so I got two names. My birth certificate, my dad didn't meet me till I was 5. I had to brief this because 35 years ago, the old Elkhart County Jail came back with 20 officers swore me to swear to God they would put me in SAG, because I had two names I revealed in court, but Judge Yoder said it's fine, it's real dad and his stepdad, you go by stepdad, no big deal, no warrants or nothing, no. But I go by Paul Shane Smith, that's my name on my birth certificate, but my real dad died 4 or 5 months ago, and his real name is Maple Lee Woodrum.
Okay.
So you can call me by Paul Shane Smith or Paul Shane Woodrum, but still Paul Shane regardless, but it's still a last name different.
Okay.
I've been going by Paul Shane Smith, so no need to change anything.
Okay. What's your date of birth, Mr. Schmidt?
12871.
Do you have a cell phone number that you'd like to provide us for notifications?
No, I would have gave you the one I live with, but I don't want to go back there no more.
Okay.
So I got rid of that old habit, and I'm tired of just seeing the counties. I'm tired of losing my liberation because infractions, urine piss tests, and just randomly in the wrong place at the wrong time to be in the county jail.
Okay. So you said earlier that you're homeless, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any way for us to contact you?
I can have a place to stay if I can. It all depends on what December 20th gives me in court. If I got to do 4 months, I would like to have 4 months probation, but I would rather have. If you give me 4 months probation and I've already got 2 strikes on this disposition case, they say 3 strikes out of ballpark. I don't know what the judge's gonna do by giving me a 3rd recommendation.
Yeah, I don't know what the judge is going to do either.
Cause that's kind of aggravating to have 2, but everybody's been saying 3 is your most ones you can get, and there's been many cases, people's had them 3 chances.
Yeah.
Probation and work release and home detention, and I don't know what I'm gonna get, if I'm gonna have to do 4 months, we don't need a prosecutor here to deal with 4 months worth of county jail.
Okay, so Mr. Schmidt, you were here when I went over the advisement of rights with Mr. Mills, and were you able to hear and understand that advisement of rights?
Yeah, I know about plea bargain rights, you weigh 75% of your rights on a plea bargain,
Well, that's not what I asked you. I asked you about the rights that I just explained to you.
Yeah, I read that too. I understand. I heard everything going
Okay.
all around. It's just I just don't want to wait in the jail to wait to see what I'm gonna get. When there's no need. You're the judge. You're the judge bosses the prosecutor bosses the state. The judge has more of a lean way to make the last decision and the first decision to hear aggravated mitigating circumstances.
So
there's no way around this. No one's working for you that you can sentence me today because I'm a paralegal. I know the system. I know the court case laws I can go to pro se in the law library.
Okay. So the probation department is alleging that you violated the terms of your probation because you submitted to a drug screen on November 7th, 2023, and the result was positive for amphetamine and methamphetamine.
No, Judge, you don't say. I am shocked, baffled, bamboozled. How did that happen? Someone must have slipped that in there on him.
They're also alleging that you owe some money to probation, but that's not a basis for revoking your probation. So
Yeah.
do you understand what the probation department is alleging that you did to violate probation?
Yeah, you just told me.
Okay, so you understand what I just told
I
you?
hear you quite well.
Okay. Are you planning, are you planning on hiring a lawyer?
No, I'm pro se myself in court.
Are you sure that you don't want to hire a lawyer?
No, I want to pro se myself in court. There's only 4 remedies you give me: 4 months in jail, probation, work release, home detention. You can't send me to prison because prison will send me right back out as soon as I get there with my 090-04-967 DOC number. I already contacted the state commissioner, and the state commissioner said, Mr. Meter down here RDC, 4 months. We don't take misdemeanors down here because everything's overcrowded. The bed system's overcrowded. You see,
Yeah, that's
they
correct.
need beds for more important.
Well, do you understand that if you do have a lawyer, then the lawyer might be able to talk to the prosecutor and work out kind of an agreed recommendation to give to the judge about what's going to happen to you?
Well, it really don't make no difference because I'm just going to get another month in. That's 3 months good
Well-
time with 3 months left, and I got 3 months left. I don't have no more felonies or misdemeanors to worry about. Even if I did 90 more days in jail, even if December 20th, 3 months. Your remaining time in jail, that's 3 months. What's that gonna do when I
So-
get back out on the street and I'm paper free? I'm paper free.
So I understand that,
I'm not trying to take up your time in court.
I
You
understand.
gotta go home,
I-
go to bed, take care, eat, and all these other things, you know.
so a lawyer might be able to help you with this.
I'm a certified paralegal. I can outsmart a lawyer in court. I can trial. I know what court arraignment, what disposition is when you get arrested, what a court arraignment hearing is, what an omnibus hearing is, what evidence hearing
Well,
is, what
Mr.
pretrial basis is, what a plea bargain date is, what pre-sentence investigation is, what sentencing is, and how you feel can deal.
That may be the case. I know what all those things are as well. And if I were charged with a crime or here on a violation of probation, I would hire a lawyer.
No, I don't want no lawyer. I got a right for a lawyer. I got a right to proceed. I can show my degree. I am certified by the Indiana State Bar Association with my paralegal degree through the Ball State University.
Okay,
Now, the
well,
Bar Association, we don't want to go to the Bar Association. That's a nasty thing to be talking about.
we'll go ahead and find that you have knowingly and voluntarily waived your right to counsel in this case.
Yeah.
Like I said, your next court date is on December 20th, 2023 at 1:30 PM. That's gonna be with Judge Lund.
I don't mean to be, I'm not upset, Your Honor. It's only 4 months. Ain't nothing to worry
I
about.
understand.
Ain't in the world, ain't in my life expectancy, you know, got paid, do crime, do time, you know, and because if I have everything up against me, you know, I just,
Okay.
there's only 4 remedies you can do with me.
Yeah, you can go with Officer Montana.
God
Thank you,
bless
Mr.
Your court.
Schmidt.
You have a wonderful day, Your Honor.
You too.
So I'm pro se, or you got me a lawyer?
You're pro se.
I'm pro se. Well, you have a good day.
You too.
Yeah, you have a good day.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I love that the judge just collapsed at the end. He just couldn't handle it anymore. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you. And that is why I do what I do, is for your guys' reaction. You guys make me so happy. No, he doesn't want a lawyer. He wants pro say this. He wants pro say this. He's pro saying it. You don't think I didn't? The problem is there's like 20 rooms and I only have 2 computers and you can only get 1 case at a time. Yeah. Oh, buddy. You betcha I wrote that one down. Oh, I love you guys. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you so much. And all of the love that you guys have sent me. Yes, please hit the like button if you're still here. Luciani, I can't imagine him in front of any other judge, any of the mainstream judges that we watch. Oh my goodness. That is Indiana. Yep, that is Indiana. And it takes special secrets for me to get that. Oh. I believe specifically Elkhart, Indiana. I'm so happy that I was able to share that with all of you. You guys are my best friends, seriously. My email is night shift with April, I believe. Yes. Night shift with April at gmail.com. That's the one that I set up specifically for all of this stuff. I'm going to try to keep an eye on it. It won't be used for anything but YouTube. Otherwise, the Discord. You know I love you. You know it. You know I do. Okay, future warning, Palmyra Productions. Anytime that I say something is an April Seering exclusive, you've been warned. Yep, I am so so happy I was able to share that with you guys. Well, don't get me wrong, Becky D. I have days where, like, okay, I have over 300 hours of stuff downloaded, waiting to be edited. And even at that, there are days where it doesn't matter how many clips I grab off of my drive to edit, I just can't get to anything within it. You know, it's like I have literally some cases sitting in my SD card that are just named docket. Because that's nothing happens. It is just a docket for when we feel like we want to sit and chat, but we need background noise, because you know we have those days. And that is what they're there for. They are just there to exist. Nothing happens in them. I've taken the little, annoying gaps out of them, but they're just there for us to sit and chill with. So I have those. But I do like to give you guys good stuff once in a while. I may have. But you can't prove that I did. I did. I did say that. That was from Indiana, Elkhart, Indiana. Why is that shot? He said he's got his certificate from the Indiana Bar Association or something like that when he was going off about being a paralegal. He said it. Yeah, and see, everything that I have learned to do, I've taught myself. So I was in that same position that you're in right now. I was in that same position way less than a year ago when I first started sending clips to Mike. That's the only reason I learned to edit in the first place, was I loved his chat, and I loved his chat community so much, and I wanted to give back to them through sending him clips, but I didn't want to just, send him clips with a timestamp, and a lot of those clips come down immediately. Like that one that I just showed you, the only place that it exists is on my stream and on my SD card. That's it. It's gone. So, yeah. So, yeah, that's the only reason I learned to edit. And now I'm at where I'm at, and I'm so grateful. I'm so blessed. And I do this because I love spending time with you guys. That's it. The sheriff that walked past on the screen. I don't. Who, the defendant? I feel like I'm missing a big giant secret right now. Thank you. No. The defendant's last name was Schmidt. Schmidt. And remember, he's got two names. His pappy named him something, and his pappy died 4 months ago, but he was named blah, 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 blah. He went on that whole rant. But his name was Schmidt. Oh, you guys. All right. I'm going to go get, maybe 3 hours of sleep. Maybe. And then I have to get up and I have to wash with that stupid Betasept soap, surgical scrub stuff. And, ugh, you know. I'll let y'all know how it goes. Thank you for being there for me. And thanks for, thank you to Nicola Maxwell, Palmyra Productions. I know somebody else mentioned themselves having sent me a PayPal. Everybody who's been sending me the PayPal and the Cash App and stuff from Amazon, guys, thank you so much. You have absolutely no idea how much that helps me and how much I appreciate it and how blown away I am by that. I really am. But I am so grateful. I love you all. Sleep well for my US friends and for my across the waters friends. Have a wonderful day. And I'll see you soon. Much love.